And thank you also for joining us today. It's many of you I have seen your faces, many of you I've met you in person over the years, and I just really want to say thank you for joining us here for this sort of webinar, which is really about it's about company news in a way more than anything, as much as it is about sharing how this can, we hope, will benefit the world and the places where we live in the world of work. So the fact that we're joining here today really is a statement, I think, about the interest in which we have all taken in this continuing journey that we see across the world of changing the organizations that we work in and serve. Over the years, it's been really apparent that the change which is happening really all over the world it's a global change. And I think that the news that we're sharing today of AWA Norway is part of that mission. And I just want to thank you all for being a part of this journey, both today and for many of you over the last few years, really, even if that's been a passing interest in what we're doing at AWA, or coming to courses, contributing to the change that we've made, contributing to the many groups and communities that we've created, most of them free, for people contributing into making a difference. And I think part of being here today is part of that, and it makes a statement really of yourselves really about being interested in what we're doing. So thank you. I want to pass over to Siri, who is going to be and has been and will continue to be an important part of AWA as our new CEO for AWA Norway. So I'll pass over to Siri, who will introduce herself to you all, who joins us in this incredible journey that we've seen so far, and will be a powerful force for the continuation of that. So enough from me to say thank you. Over to you, Siri, to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Simon. I'm really happy to be here, to be finally meeting with the AWA community. I'll start by just giving a brief introduction about myself. So my name is Siri, as Simon mentioned. Like the iPhone, it's become a lot easier to have Siri as a name since the iPhone launched its version of my name. So I'm a social anthropologist by education, but I've been working for most of my life in communications. And I've worked for a lot of organizations, mostly in the international development aid industry. And John and I have been together for almost 10 years now. And during the pandemic, we started talking about the future of working life and what that means for us and what we can bring into the field of work, and how we can make a difference with what we know and how we can work better together. And I wanted to share with you just like a small anecdote from my previous job. It was a few years ago. I was traveling to Somalia, and I was visiting with some beneficiaries of a project that the development fund had there, where I met with this family, and this woman was sharing about how she now had access to water and that therefore could grow food all year round. So she had become self-sufficient. And she also told me a story about a drought that had affected the country a few years earlier. And she was saying that when this drought occurred, that a lot of internal refugees from other parts of the country were coming into her village. And she was sharing the food and excess water that she and her family had with the refugees that came into their village. And I, from my very Western perspective, asked her, but so why would you do that? Weren't you afraid that you yourself and your children wouldn't have enough to eat? And she just looked at me with this face as if she didn't quite understand the question. And I realized that for her, the idea of having food and water for herself and for her family and seeing other people starve on the other side of the gate was just unthinkable. this is something that hadn't even occurred to her, because they were all in it together. They were one community in her mind. So for her to not share was just unthinkable.
Yeah, I really like that story. It's a powerful story, and it's also a story that says something about the values and the way we would like to live in the Agile community as well. Because we're talking about that we space. How can we work together to survive? How can we work together to thrive? So it's really about having that bigger identity, wider identity to the wider of society as well, to the wider of our teams and our organizations. So I really love this story of sharing and thinking about the we, not only the I.
Yeah, and I think that brings us back to what is the purpose of AWA and what is the purpose of AWA Norway, which is making working life better, right? Which is creating a better space for us together. And so what does that mean in a Norwegian context or a Scandinavian context? So this of working better together and creating that community with the psychological safety is something of a passion of ours as well, and something that we really wanted to get together and work on creating.
Yeah, at sharing, and also when you joined me first in January, we decided also to live it and to develop each other and give each other constant open feedback to develop and to be able to share even more and take on even more challenges in the wider world. So it is a passion for us, making work life better, and also for us. So yeah, this is our story. And so let me share a bit about myself as well. So some of you know me already. I'm an enterprise Agile coach. I've been training with Adventures Agile for a while now, holding several courses. My background, and I've also focused a lot more on the coaching side the last few years. So studying coaching, systemic coaching, and even wrote a postgraduate on coaching with the University of Chester. So coaching is also a passion. But I'm coming from a technical background. So I've educated as a software developer or software engineer. I met Agile in 2006. Was introduced to this by Alistair Coburn with his value-based approach to Agile. And I've been working as a developer. I've been working as a Scrum Master, Agile project manager, all of the different roles, even head of department, and then also Agile coach. And some years ago, I wanted to deepen my knowledge about complexity. And I learned from Dave Snowden about Cynefin, and I searched more on the web to learn even more. And I found this article, deep dive into Cynefin and complexity, written by Simon Powers, Adventures with Agile. And Simon, this was a really interesting article you wrote about mapping the different domains. And it made me interested also in what more was from Adventures with Agile. So I looked for more articles, and I found an article called The Agile Mindset. And this was really the hook for me with Adventures with Agile, because suddenly the mindset became tangible. So I learned about the proactive belief, people belief, complexity belief, but I also understood how that connected to the values and how we work. And for the first time, I realized that the mindset wasn't just aspirational values or trying to connect the dots between what we should think and how we actually do think. It's actually about how we show up, how we think, how we see the world. That is the mindset, how we really think about the world around us. And that needs to change in order to really get the benefits from agility. So after reading about this as well, I searched more on the pages. I saw they had classes, the courses. I went over to England. I took all of the classes. I actually think I took 5 classes in a year. And I was in for more surprise because I knew about Agile coaching. But to me, up until that point, there was something about the coaching or guidance of people's journey in agility. But at these classes, I really understood the meaning coaching. We're talking about the coaching approach, not just a fancy title, Agile coach. We're actually talking about this approach as a way of supporting organizations and teams. Coaching helps people to get their or move their behaviors towards what is really important to them. And I think that we need to support people in this coaching way to help them understand the purpose of what their work really is, and help them feel safe enough to be proactive so that people take ownership and do engage if we facilitate this for them. So it's really about enabling people to make decisions and contribute in the best ways. And coaching helps them figure out how the best way from their context is. And it's also about supporting organizations to see the wider identity, or people in the organization see the wider identity, as Siri also talked about. How can we together achieve these goals as the organization or as the team? So as you understood, I really connected with the content in the classes, but I also was impressed about how the courses were held. So I talked with Simon and I said, we need to bring these classes to Norway. And we decided, okay, so let's do it. Let's run an experiment. Let's set up some classes.
I think it's safe to say that experiment was a success from the start.
Yeah. And it's really fun because we had full classes from the start. We started with, I think it was Agile team coaching classes. We set up Agile facilitation classes, and also enterprise bootcamp. And within the first year. And then we had the pandemic as well. So we set up online classes, and we worked with a global community, if you like. So having a lot of different people from all over the world.
And we've set up with some partnerships as well. And for Norway, we've partnered with Bouvet. I think we also have Nina from Bouvet somewhere in this webinar.
Yeah.
And we've set up the Agile team coaching classes. And now also the Agile team foundation facilitation class starting next week. And news of now, starting AWA Norge, is that we're also expanding to other cities. So we're setting up the first ATC in Trondheim in October. And together with Nina and Bouvet, we'll set up in Bergen and Stavanger for the next year to come as well.
Yeah. And we also been setting up classes in Stockholm with Dandy people. We have our next class in, I think it's November, Enterprise with Dandy people in Stockholm. We would like to also expand and partner with more people and more countries as well. So setting up this and sharing this quality training and quality coaching. So we would like to invite individuals and organizations to partner with us to bring this message out, but also to help us expand, become trainers, coaches, and maybe also partner us to bring training to your companies, or set up coaching capabilities even within your company, so you are able to do this for yourself as well. So we really would like you to get in touch if this is interesting, if you would like to work with us on these things. So if anyone could also share the link to our webpage in the chat, so people have that.
Mm.
And Yeah,
it's
sorry.
worth noting that this website went live today. So it's a bit of a celebration in terms of a new website. I'm sure many of us work in the tech world, and we know how difficult it can be getting anything delivered whatsoever in the tech space, but we've done it. We got the website up, so we now have a Norwegian website. So well done. Congratulations to everyone for making that happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And in addition to providing quality service of training and coaching, as we talked about earlier as well, we would really like to be a voice in the wider society as well. So we've talked about in some context before as well, this bringing the agile values and the agile mindset and the coaching approach to the wider society. And the thinking is that if it works in organizations, if it works with a team, we really think we can work outside of organizations and between organizations. And also think that when we start expecting this kind of skillful interaction between us to get more out of what we would like to achieve together, then people in organizations, then people bring that home and they start expecting that also in the wider society. So we would like to be part of that voice, and we would like to invite everyone to be part of that voice, really.
And I think that can also kind of segue us over a bit back to you, Simon, because I think it was one of the first meetings that I attended where you were a part of it, and you said something that I actually found quite inspiring, because you were talking about how the AWA vision of making working life better, and you were saying that no one country can do that, that this is a global effort, and that it's impossible for AWA to only be in the UK for this mission for this vision to materialize.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the work that we're doing in organizations is about descaling organizations and creating a sort of networked or more distributed approach to work. So why would we create a huge monolith which goes against the way that we have which goes against the way that we're looking at very large organizations and global organizations. And I think I mean, I hope that it's become pretty obvious through Siri and John Inge's way that they're speaking, the passion which is coming out for this topic, which we've always held very dear at AWA. It's always been driven by this passion to make a difference, to see the difference that we make in real terms in both the organizations and the world of work at large. And I think that this move to create AWA Norway as a separate Norwegian entity that is both localized but also global, it folds in this real observation that I mentioned earlier on about the way that the world of work is changing. It's changing in South America, North America, Africa, China, the whole of Europe, all of Australia, and every single continent is going through the same shift. It's not a localized Western phenomena. And the world is waking up to a different sense of relationship between the world of work, but each other as well. We're expecting different things. And I think the power of having localized, like in this case, Norwegian focus, allows us to both approach that globally, that huge global shift in both consciousness, which leads on to real changes in the way that we lead our organizations and the processes that deliver value to customers from a global perspective. But also, we also have to recognize that every region has its differences, and those need to be honored as well. So there's a global shift, but also nuances and very important cultural differences in different regions. And this move to decentralize in a way the AWA global presence, it allows us to focus not only building larger capability across the planet to make these global changes, but it also allows us to focus and deepen those relationships to the local cultures and our partners in those regions as well. So I think that we're going to benefit everybody by doing this approach. And I hope that we can do this in other regions as well, so that we truly can create this global shift that we've been talking about, and have been successful in creating some of that global shift over the last sort of 8 or 9 years of AWA. Believe it or not, it's been that long since those first meetups in London. We have, I think we've made a big difference, and I see this being a big part of that continued growth in changing the world of work. So thank you for those introductions, and I hope that with Siri being the CEO and John Inge continuing to develop and grow the training and deep coaching in the region, I think that we'll have a very strong presence and ability to make a big difference. So thank you for that. Awesome. So that's kind of sort of my perspective on how this fits into the AWA picture going forwards. And I think we were going to move on to a sort of a bit more of a dialogue, and for questions and any comments or any observations or anything, a bit more of an open forum of discussion. Did you want to sort of start that off with some questions, John Inge, or how do we want to progress with that?
Yeah, so I'm thinking giving people a minute to think of questions as well, and I'm glad to take any questions. We'll also prepare the question for you. So if you would like to answer this either on camera and on microphone, or just sharing the chat, that will also be good. I'm sharing the question as well in the chat. But our question to you is, if you can help us, what are the top 5 things in the wider society that could be improved through a people-first approach? So through agility or through coaching, what are the top 5 things, or even top 1 thing you can think of?
And also just to invite questions in general as well. That gives us a good focus, but any questions in general about the impact that we might be making, how this might affect you, if there's anything that you want to be involved in. Really, it's an absolute open forum for any questions that may come up. You know, how is this useful for you? What, that sort of thing.
Yeah. People's health, mental health, and physical health. Work-related stress is too high. True. And public health care.
Well, one thing we can talk to about these things is if there's any more questions, we can answer them in order. We don't have to wait for a whole load of questions. We might as well do this in a lean or Kanban way as people write things, and do them as soon as we bring them across. So one of the things that we have been focusing on is systems coaching, and looking at the systems element of both through systems thinking and systems coaching in a complex environment. And one of the most complex systems that we come across is actually the system which goes on inside our own heads. The actual complexity of the different parts of us which make up who we are, and which parts of those are in control of us at any one moment. And the work that we've been looking at in terms of our systems coaching, both complexity on the outside and complexity on the inside, combine to make a very interesting set of models of how our organizations are made up, and how we both work from a complexity of delivering products and services, and how we integrate with the wider society, but also the systems of what happens internally, and how do working in these big organizations and global pandemics and financial disasters and terrorism and climate change and all those other things which you read about in the news, well, how does that impact the inner systems, and what kind of organizations of the future and really organizations of today are doing not only about the systems of complexity which we see outside ourselves, but the systems of complexity inside. And it actually turns out that many of the things that we've been working on the outside actually can apply to the systems inside. And I'm not talking about biological systems, I'm talking about the mental makeup of how we perceive reality, how we make sense of that, draw conclusions, and that then sets our baseline narrative of what we tell ourselves about the world, and how that affects our mood and our relationships. And that then creates a sort of baseline level of happiness or sadness or struggle. So it turns out that many of the things that we've been working on the outside work on the inside as well. And so what can we do as a community and as a company? So in the coaching and in the processes of organizational change, whether it be at team level, organizational level, or coaching leadership, how can we bring in some of these new ideas, these new ways of coping, these new ways of becoming stronger on the inside into that wider work of organizational change, so that we're not only getting products out faster, we're doing it with happier, well-balanced people. And we've done a fair few workshops on this, both in our innovation and leadership mastery and also in other places as well. And I think this is going to be something that comes out through the work we do over the next few years, maybe even a few months, but certainly over the next few years. Things like bringing therapy practices into coaching and the workplace. Very interesting topic.
Yeah. And on the public healthcare is, as Ida is sharing as well, two thoughts spring to my mind. One is the more of the moving from project and waterfall projects in how are we actually working in that sector with the digitalization, but also how we are actually delivering the healthcare. The other thing is, if we're looking at the wider society as well, how can we, as a community, support each other also outside of what is already set up? So one inspiration for me, which isn't directly healthcare, but it can apply similarly, is a friend of ours. He constantly looks to get something that people are throwing away, to build new stuff from that. So he builds new stuff and then he shares back to someone. And this is a passion of his. So he does this for free, besides his regular job. But just imagine if we were able to support that kind of hobbies, or if we're thinking public healthcare, how we can also see probably a lot of people around us that would really like to help more people with health issues. And how can we support that even to bring that innovation and engagement from that sense of purpose? Because having that motivational purpose and having resources and being allowed to do stuff like that, I think that could really be a great thing for public health, if not only for public health care. So that was my thinking when I saw this from Ida. Thank you.
It's also worth noting that these things are different in different regions as well. Hence the reason for, I mean, healthcare in the UK is extremely different than healthcare in the US, for example, and probably very different than what you find in Norway as well. Yeah. So these challenges are best faced sometimes locally, as well as drawing upon information and examples from other regions.
Yeah. And how about schools and education? That is really interesting topic as well. So bringing the values in, and how can we support the students to learn more focused from their own motivation, but also probably see how they can collaborate better to get that information. So I had a talk with my daughter some years ago. I talked about, I think it was transaction analysis, because I was reading about that at the time, and I was telling her about some of it, and how I can deal with emotions and deal also interactive with other people. And she stopped in a track and she said, well, it's unfair. And what's unfair? Well, if they just had taught this at school, there would be so much less conflict. So I really would like to see more of these values and the coaching approach even in schools, absolutely. And maybe that is answering even the next one, improving communication. By having that way of communicating with each other, listening to each other, really listening to intent, and seeing what are people trying to do, what are people wanting to contribute to? How are they thinking? So it's really, I think really that could improve communication between us.
And a question for you both. So we're talking about the wider social impacts that the work that we've done in organizations might have. Why are we talking about this specifically? What's the purpose of talking about these wider changes? Is it wishful thinking? Is there something that we do? What's your passion about this?
Good question. So, well, the first thing that I connected with was realizing that we need this approach to solve the big challenges in front of us. So it really started with that, seeing the different challenges that are across borders and stuff like that. But I think that growing from that, I really saw the value in not only surviving and able to meet the challenges or the problems we're facing, but building upon that, thriving, not so only surviving, and just seeing how teams and organizations start blooming when these things are starting to work, when they really get this way of working together, and looking at the wider society and can just see that, wow, what if this was the norm? And I don't think I have imagination even to think of what we could achieve. So yeah.
One of the things. Oh, sorry.
I think Susanna is raising her hand as well.
Yeah, please, Susanna.
Hi, I'm Susanna, and I'm from Germany, but I partly live in Norway, close to Trondheim. And systems thinking in Germany is big. Niklas Luhmann is coming from Germany, so his theory has been run through our country for many, many years. And for us, it's almost normal that the regular leader is taking a coach seminar. And so when I came to Norway 3 years ago, I was talking about, I'm a system coach, and everybody's like, what are you? Oh, never heard of that before. So is that, and that's why I'm so curious when I saw AWA, it's like, oh my God, now system thinking is coming to Norway. That's so amazing. Is that really a new concept here? Because I see still a difference. You're talking about agile and you're talking about systems thinking, but it's two different things, to me at least. So how would you describe the situation in Norway about systems thinking? Because agile is a big thing in Norway already, I know that, but not systems thinking. How would you see that?
Well, in the agile community, it's absolutely growing. And we have some great voices in Norway as well, talking about system thinking and social technical systems as well. So absolutely coming. But both coaching and systemic thinking, I think, is not that, well, I haven't seen that it's widespread in organizations yet. Yeah. So coaching it seems to me like the coaching approach is dawning more in Norway, absolutely. And we have also translated, or some people have translated the word coaching, and it has in some situations gotten a different meaning because it's more of a guidance. Yeah. And we know that language is difficult because we come from Agile. We know Agile even has been difficult to explain, and coaching even in English can be hard for people to grasp. Yeah. But yeah, it's I think it's dawning, and the systemic approach and the system thinking approach as well is something that is coming more and more.
Yeah, because in Germany there's also organizations are taking the systems thinking to restructure their organization. So organizational design in Germany includes systems thinking, but I don't think that is common in Norway either. I think the agility, yes, but not systems thinking. When we talk about organizations, but not on the sociological level, I think there is a lot of systems thinking already. So as far as I can see that.
One of the key elements that we've been bringing to the world of systems thinking and systems coaching is bringing systems thinking out of what the Kneven complicated zone and using techniques in the complexity zone. So when I'm thinking about the combination of systems thinking, which traditionally came from a very complicated, predictable zone of mapping out a system to see what would happen, and even if that was a very complicated situation, systems thinking was very much applied in that way, and really taking some of those concepts about using systems mapping and thinking into the complexity zone and seeing what happens when we combine elements that then emerge new truths, new insights, which could not have been seen before the event of experimentation with merging parts of the system. And so what I'm hoping happens, and this is happening not only in Norway, but also in other regions of the world, for example, in Asia and Thailand and Australia, we're doing the same work. The initial entry point, especially for AWA coming into a region, often is about redefining terms in the complexity zone. For what it actually means. For example, experiments are completely different in a predictable zone where you're looking for repetition and repeatability, whereas in the complexity zone, there we're looking to find, are we going in the right direction? Is this bringing us closer to an outcome? So all these terms mean something very different, and often the groundwork has to be laid in a region to build up enough competent people for us to be able to then build a capability there to enable organizations to start seeing these terms in a new way and letting go of some of that need for predictability that you get from, say, complicated systems thinking, and moving that into a non or less predictable zone in what can we emerge in our organizational structures? How can we combine these elements together in an incremental way that includes a real people-based focus? And that's the other thing. When we think about systems, we think about, traditionally it was about machines, and applying that metaphor to organizations and moving away from that and really leveraging the tacit knowledge which is inside people's heads to allow organizational structure to emerge from the work that people are doing on the day-to-day. And all of this takes a deep, deep knowledge of not only complexity, but about people and how they change, which is why this topic is so very, very hard, because it requires such a deep knowledge in so many subjects to allow organizations to really embrace what we've been dreaming of for the last 2 decades, or certainly the last decade or so, for what agility potentially was there to bring. And we've realized that the small agility of the single team or a few teams in software just wouldn't cut it. And so bringing that hope and dream that we had out into the wider organization has required us to start thinking about much deeper levels of complexity. So all of that being said, I have high hopes for us bringing systems coaching and systems thinking, but with that slant on it from a complexity angle into Norway, if it isn't already there, and certainly growing what is there and leveraging that and making this widely more accessible for sure.
Yeah.
And I do think you're right, Susanne, that yes, there's a lot of talk of agility, and that is growing in Norway as well, but it's still, even Agile is not that common outside of the world of tech and finance and those kind of localized, like bringing it to public health, for instance, has not really happened yet. And I think that getting that coaching approach and looking at the systems is really something that is going to grow a lot during the next few years, with and without the AWA, and we're just excited to be part of that journey.
Yeah.
As always, right. Sorry.
Yeah. So just to acknowledge Ida's sharing as well, bringing time to treatment from months to 3 days in the healthcare sector. So yeah, really nice. Thank you for sharing that, Ida. Yeah. Sorry, Sanne.
Well, I was just going to say we are rapidly approaching our time, which is really just 1 minute away. So so for wrapping up for me, I would just say again, just to iterate the thank you for being here, being part of this. I think that we can together, as always, both us here, AWA, but also the larger, wider community, bring these concepts of complexity and people-based change to these wider fields. And I believe that this is really the answer to some of the big issues that we see in the news today. But we just need to figure out how we take it from the work that we've done and proven into the wider space. And there is some elements of that in terms of fractal growth and how fractals work and how we can set constraining rules and things like that. So just as a shameless plug, last chapter of my book, it's about complexity in the wider society. But yeah, just to wrap up, just to say thank you. Thank you for being here, really, and being part of this incredible journey, which will continue probably long after we're all gone. Would you like to say anything also to close? Well, anyone, but specifically Siri and John Inge.
Just echoing that and saying thank you to everyone that came. And I think we'd love to hear more from you, and just please get in touch with us if you have any more thoughts and ideas. We'd love to hear it. Yeah,
thank you.
And I guess that goes across also partnering, working with or for AWA and in the general wider community, meetups, things like that as well. So if you have a great meetup to run in Norway area, also would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
So thank you all. Look forward to seeing you at the next event, whatever that might be.
Yes. Thank you.
Take care. Good to see you all.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank
Hey,
you.
everyone. Bye.
Thank you.